Welcome to Envisioned Broadcasting, the station designed to encourage, equip, and empower you for growth and success. Presents Women Emerge with Melissa Lambert, a show that shines a light on spiritual growth, health, purpose, and financial education. It's time to emerge and begin to live out your dreams, walk into your destiny, while making a difference in the lives of many.
Welcome to Women Emerge with Dr. Melissa Lambert, H.C. I am so excited about today. This topic is about to get real, y'all. And this conversation that we're going to be having will be with an amazing woman, Dr. Bertha White, H.C. And we're going to have this dialogue about the government shutdown, mental health, and domestic violence, the emotional toll on families and faith and our community at large. Here at Woman Emerge with Melissa Lambert is a space where faith meets empowerment and real conversation bring healing, hope, and action. Today we are diving into some tough but necessary topic, and the person that's going to lead us off is Dr. Bertha White, H.C., and she is not a stranger to the show. So welcome again. As always, Dr. Bertha, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Miss Melissa. I appreciate that.
Yes, and Dr. Bertha, this conversation that we're going to be having for the audience to hear, we're talking about our nation, America in itself, but people around the world is also listening. And I know that there's other things that are happening, especially in the different islands, especially island of Jamaica, different countries. Mm-hmm. They're all having their own things going on. But we're going to really talk about what's happening right now in our country. So can you just elaborate? Let's talk about the government shutdown and the emotional toll.
Well, we recognize that today is the 28th day of the federal government shutdown. So it has truly been an external stressor that's triggered a spike in anxiety, depression, and domestic violence. I'm seeing that in my private practice as well, because there's an enormous amount of people affected, either directly or from a trickle-down effect. And so what we're looking at is this impact. And we're talking financial stressors, service disruptions, isolation. It really starts to intensify. And we can't forget that there's this psychological strain that impacts the way that we live, our daily functioning. So it's like people have been thrusted into this abyss of uncertainty, fear, and powerlessness, really about how they're going to care for themselves and how they're going to care for their families. And these types of uncertainties really start to erode trust and security, and it makes people feel undervalued, And so when we can't predict, any of us, when we can't predict the future, these stress hormones, they stay elevated. And over time, it becomes more like chronic stress, which leads to burnout and mental fatigue. So that's where we get this emotional toll from.
And I just love when how you mentioned uncertainty, and it can lead to that anxiety, the sleepless night, the depression, and even the hopelessness that we feel, and that emotional exhaustion can also just really, not only just from the cost of losing our income, but just when you think about it, it brings forth that fear of not knowing what's next, Miss Bertha. And that's, to me, it's a lot on America. It's a lot on our people.
I refer to this as an all-encompassing stagnation. It seems like progress in life has come to a pause for all of us. Everything just paused. And that is the most difficult to deal with when everything around you in all aspects of your life have been affected by this.
Wow. And when you
Absolutely.
say that pause, because you always say pause in some areas of your birth or rise, and we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about our life being on pause.
Mm-hmm.
How do one deal with such pause that is occurring? Not because you initiate, because you always talk about initiating the pause, right? But we didn't initiate this life pause. How can we deal with something in that sort, Miss Bertha, Dr. Bertha?
Well, we have to look at all factors that are involved. And we're definitely talking about financial. Money issues are magnifying, arguments are increasing, morale is dropping. Families have to make these heartbreaking choices between paying bills, groceries, or medications. And it's exhausting, Dr. Melissa, and it's discombobulating, just from the lack of control that we have. And so, there are a number of things that we can do, and that is just starting to have a conversation. When you ask, what can we do about these things? These are the things that we're talking about. We want to just start to normalize conversations about not just how the federal government shutdown is affecting us, but other than that, how are we being affected by how, we're conducting life? So just normalizing those kinds of conversations. And I am so happy to say we have more public figures and faith leaders and, everyday people speaking out about their struggles. And that really gives other folks permission to speak about their mental health instabilities too.
Yes.
And what we have to remember is we all have a part, in promoting mental wellness, physical health, and spiritual well-being. That, includes therapists, faith leaders, community members. All of us can support, this better way of dealing with our mental health amidst everything that we have going on. So, and we just can't ignore generational challenges when we're talking about normalizing mental health conversations, especially during a time of, the political climate. So we have the current generation that's challenging the notion of stigma. Thank goodness they're challenging that notion, and they're becoming knowledgeable about what mental health means to them, and they're expressing their struggles and their circumstances more openly, which makes this type of discussion more acceptable.
Yeah. Yeah, because back then I think we hide behind thinking that we're alone and this is only affecting us, and why am I talking about it? But now why are we not? Like, why are we keeping this a secret? Why do we feel like we have to suffer in silence? Why do we feel like the world is only happening to me? It's happening to all of us. And so how does financial stress, we kind of dibbled in that a few seconds ago, but how does financial stress during a shutdown affect families and communities?
It leaves people with the thought of being helpless and hopeless and no one to turn to, And so when we talk about and making it important that we all realize this is all encompassing, when we all pull together and work towards making this a little easier for each other. We have our responsibilities. Churches have their responsibilities. We're all gathering resources and sharing those resources. We recognize that money is tight or non-existing. And we're all feeling the effects from this shutdown. It's a ripple effect. Communities are starting to feel the ripple effect, in a lack of resources. But then there are those in the communities that are gathering together and giving giveaways. So we want to be sure to work with, what we have, but people don't have control or say over what's going to happen, to them next. And that's disheartening. So, We all do have to pull together, have these conversations, make our mental health, see it as a part of our total health and not separate from it. And, recognize the impacts that it's having right now. We all need to be a little more sensitive to the facts.
Yeah. And I love what you said, how we're communities coming together. I was watching and listening to what's happening in different churches and how some of the churches are like taking their normal offerings and basically pouring it back in the community, or they're increasing on their pantries, and they're opening up the pantries to the community. That is what it's all about. And even me, as why I'm so passionate about teaching families about infinite banking concept, becoming your own bank, it's really teaching us to become our own economy. How do we do that together? How do we, expand on just not just saying it's all about me, so we never have to depend solely on the system, because the system can easily take itself away from us. But
that
instead,
is so true.
Yeah, when we become our own bank, we're creating a stability that nobody can take away. The government can't take away what you create in your own economy. So I love how you're mentioning how, as a community, we need to support one another. It's crucial in this time because, and I want to kind of go back to the financial stress. When you think about financial stress, Dr. Bertha, the emotional strain that can also cause the tension of marriages, breaking down in the communication aspect and even health challenges. Can we dig deeper into even just that right now? Because, say, for instance, the breadwinner is the husband who may work for the government and had to go through the shutdown. What does that tension, that ripple effect of stress now brings into that household? Can we talk on that per se?
Sure. Now, first, let me go back to the fact that there are those who are prepared for matters like this. Maybe someone that's working with infinite banking, who are, who have pockets of finances that they can dip into and provide for themselves during a period like this. When that happens, there's no real financial strain on the couple or on the family. We're talking about families and couples that don't have that means, that may be living from check to check, paycheck to paycheck, or there's only one person working, or both, of the couple are federal workers and have been furloughed. All of that makes it extremely difficult to deal with. There is, within the home, irritation and frustration with our circumstances, which is normal. We have to be mindful of when that irritation and frustration turns into aggravation and anger. When it turns into aggravation and anger, that's going to deepen, and it's going to come out towards someone. So this is one of the dangers that, this type of environment is going to cause. We have to be mindful, of that. It's going to cause aggression. It could potentially, and it has actually, increased domestic violence. Our circumstances, the circumstances around us, these external stressors have increased domestic violence. So when you ask how are couples handling this, some are handling it very well. But for those who have been at risk for abuse, it intensifies right now. And it pretty much looks like it looks like the forms of abuse that we know. Okay? It's not just physical. It's not just emotional, verbal. It is sexual. It is financial. It is discriminatory. It is organizational. And it is institutional. We're talking about all these things that happen in these intimate relationships, outside of the relationship, the marriage, outside of the marriage, that's then reflected inside of the marriage. You understand what I'm saying? And
yes,
so
yes.
we really do have to be aware of what domestic violence looks like.
Mm-hmm.
There are no excuses for someone hurting you and abusing you.
Mm-hmm.
And these are some, myths that we're dealing with, couples are dealing with, singles are even dealing with. When we talk about these myths about domestic violence, well, they're being challenged, thank goodness, because we know that it doesn't just happen in good families. That's what some of us try to portray, or that the victims have provoked it. That's said a lot, within the relationship. Because we have to remember this type of abuse, any type of abuse, spreads across all races and incomes and religions, and it affects us all. There's another myth. It's not just physical. It includes all these types of abuse and aggressions that I spoke about. And again, I would say that the federal government shutdown constitutes an institutional aggression or abuse. So, even though people are in these situations as a couple where there is abuse involved, there are warning signs that they should pay attention to or at least learn about. So if there are any listeners today that aren't sure what this looks like, how this government shutdown and all of the stress that's involved in it, and the spike in anxiety and depression and domestic violence, what does this look like? How do I know it's coming? I want to remind them that there are plenty of signs. There are signs. If you're in an abusive relationship, it goes in this cycle, starting with tension building. That's kind of like when an abuser becomes irritated or critical or unpredictable. An example of that might be 1 minute you're in the kitchen with your partner, you're cooking dinner, they're at the table, and then there's this flip of a switch. And then you turn around and, everything is a problem. You're a problem and so is your meal. 1 minute everything is okay and the next minute it isn't. And you're left trying to figure out what's going on. You start to blame yourself. What did I do? Is it my fault? Why are you critical of me? What can I do to help? That's tension building right there. And then there's the incident of abuse. We know that it's going to be most likely physical, emotional, or verbal violence, although it can be sexual as well. Then there's this reconciliation period, Dr. Melissa, where the abuser might apologize, give gifts, promise that they won't ever do it again. They may promise to go to church with you. And then there's this calm and honeymoon period before it all starts again. The cycle is going to continue. And when we talk about couples that, where there's domestic violence involved, and there's usually a woman, although this happens to men as well, there's a woman who wants to leave the relationship, wants to exit the abuse. It normally takes about 7 attempts for a survivor to successfully exit an abusive relationship. This is how difficult it can be, once these stressors kick in and anxiety and depression kicks in, domestic violence increases. It increases. And women don't leave for a number of reasons, not just one, a number of reasons that prevent them from leaving for good or causes them to return. Things like, consideration of the kids, and maybe living alone is just not affordable, or they don't think anyone is going to listen, and they don't know where to turn for any help. It could be, unfortunately, some women learn to accept this dangerous and unpredictable space of abuse. It's a matter of becoming used to it. It's a matter of thinking you can change it. It's a matter of hope that things will get better, So, we are, really looking at all all of these warning signs and being aware of what abuse really means, what emotional abuse really means, and verbal abuse really means. We are aware of what physical abuse means. Most people think, but that type of physical abuse doesn't come only with a punch or a slap. It can come with poking, consistent poking, or consistent pinching, things of that. We want to be on the lookout for that as well. Couples, a woman in a relationship or in a marriage might think that, she cannot be sexually abused by her husband. That's not true. That's a myth. We want to look out for all of these factors and seek help when, we need to seek help. This is why it's so important for our families and our church members and community members to be aware that these things exist. Talk to people. Ask them if they're okay. Listen to what they say. If you can't listen, send them on to someone else who will listen to them, because these situations are dangerous. We want to be able to see a sign. If you are an abused person and you come up to me and you can't say, I'm hurting and I've been abused, can you give me a sign? Everybody needs to know the national hand signal for help.
Yes.
And I'm going to try to describe it to you. It's like raising your hand as if you're asking a question in a classroom. Okay, so your hand is up, and you cross your thumb across your palm. So 4 fingers are up, and close and open, while your finger is still crossed across your palm. That's the national signal for help. So if you see it, someone is trying to tell you they need help. They may not be able to say it, And as we're talking to each other and checking in with each other and giving resources, make sure you give emergency numbers.
Yeah.
You want to be sure to do that and have that on hand. And I think the most important part here is that if someone tells you they're being hurt, yes, you do listen. Yes, you do believe them. And yes, you can help them to develop a safety plan for exiting, if that's what they want to do. You can't make anyone do it, but you can let them know that you hear them and you want to support them and their safety on the other side of their door.
Yes.
So,
I love that.
There's a lot to be said about it. Yes, indeed.
Yes. And I'm glad that you brought all this up, Dr. Bertha, because I truly believe that, we don't think there is different type of violence. We just think physical, but not knowing there is emotional, there is sexual, right? And yes, there is physical abuse. So even that, when you think about it, also it's mental abuse, right? So let's go deeper into the mental health and wellness. Again, you're tuned into Women Emerge with Dr. Melissa Lambert. I'm so thankful to have Dr. Bertha White, who's here to really dig deeper into this conversation. The government shutdown, mental health and domestic violence, the emotional toll on families and faith communities. So we're digging deeper into this dialogue today, and I want us to dig more into mental health and wellness, right? So why do you think mental health conversations have become more and more normalized, yet still carry stigma?
Well, it's become more normalized, I think, with new generations that are coming about who are more than willing to understand their feelings, express their feelings, recognize that others have the same. They're more willing to, acknowledge when there is a struggle. And they talk more about this. And because they talk more about this, therapy comes up. and how effective therapy can be. So that is one reason therapy and faith can be. We want to continue these types of conversations. The more we continue these types of conversations, the more, we normalize the conversation and seeking help for the situation. So we want that to continue to happen. And not just this generation, but older generations as well. In my private practice, my oldest client is 85. So older generations are understanding, the benefits of recognizing and accepting, mental health as a part of your total health. Your physical health is not separate. We go to the doctor for physical health reasons. We take aspirin when we have a headache. And so why then would we not address our mental health issues? And that is becoming the conversation. Yet and still, there are stigmas that are still lingering around. And it's just deeply ingrained. It's generational. It's not something that's going to easily go away. The whole notion of it being you being weak if you talk about your feelings, or that you don't have faith if you acknowledge that, there's a mental health problem. You need help with the way that you're thinking. You need help with the way that you're feeling. You need help with the way that you're responding to all of this. There's still that stigma around it. You don't tell people outside of the house what's going on inside of the house, kind of thing. But luckily, again, not only are, generations talking about this a little more, but our public figures are doing the same. Our faith members and leaders are doing the same. We're partnering with each other to spread the good news of the fact that this is real. You're not alone. Your mental health is important. It's a vital piece. Everything is connected. Your mental health is connected to your physical health, is connected to your spiritual health. So we need to address all of those. That's the word that's, being spread today. So we're normalizing the conversations, and we're getting away from stigmas, although they do still exist.
Yeah, and the stigma, I definitely believe it still exists, but because of the fear of judgment, right? Our cultural expectations, our misinformation, and that's why I love who you are as a person. You've been in this field for a very long time. You've seen it all, you've heard it all, and you understand exactly how this can affect everybody. But the truth is, it's strength to ask for help. And I'm going to say that again. It calls for strength when you say, I need help, or I need to seek a professional like Dr. Bertha to help me on my mental health journey. So I thank you for always standing up in the gap for us, those who are open to say, I know that I have some type of trauma that I haven't dealt with, even past trauma, childhood trauma, current trauma. The current situation that we're looking into, government shutdown, the pause in our lifestyle, the pause in our finance, right? And sometimes you do need a professional in the expertise of mental health to have that conversation. So how can we encourage people, Dr. Bertha, to seek help before a crisis happens?
Well, we want to be able to do that, but right now we're amid a crisis. So our first priority is to, address the immediate needs of the people who are affected. But when we move towards encouraging people to seek help before a crisis ever even happens, it requires us to check in with each other and make that a normal thing. Check in. Ask, reasonable questions, listen, and be willing to help, and we want to encourage people to learn ways to identify their own warning signs. This is how we avert a crisis. Know your own warning signs when, it's to tell you that a crisis is ensuing, one's coming. And so you can address it there. The best resource for that is a therapist who can help you to understand, what's happening to you and what those warning signs look like so you can avert a crisis. We want to be sure to do these kinds of things. And two, there are many practical strategies that we can use for ourselves before a crisis occurs. One thing, there's a couple of factors that I have been sharing on my Mindful Moments with Bertha Arise, and that's first, affording yourself, making sure you have a space where your peace is free. Now, that could be outside, it could be in your prayer closet, it could be, in your bedroom, a place where your peace is free. Now, sometimes we have to pay for our peace. And if that's something that you have to do, you and I were talking about that last week, I think. If that's something that you have to do, then go ahead and do that. But the purpose is 4 things, actually. Call it a P4. It is pausing, processing, planning before you proceed. So if you pause in this peaceful, quiet space where your peace is free, you allow yourself the opportunity to calm your nerves, quiet your thoughts, so you can process them. When you're processing them, it's easier to make plans what steps you're going to take next before you proceed. And so this is a vital, strategy that we should all use. We want to pause, process, plan, and then proceed as many times as we need to repeat this process throughout the day. We're living in struggles that we can't control. So pausing is absolutely necessary if for nothing else but to maintain your composure. So following these steps are helpful. Make sure you get yourself ample sleep. You want to make sure that you have regular meals. You want to make sure that you exercise. That's another great space where your peace is free and you can think clearly and release some energy. So there are things that we can do. You can journal if you choose to journal. There are things. Encourage ourselves, move ourselves, affirm ourselves. Things that we can do, even during this time here, are effective. Not 100% proof, not in a time like this. We're going to have to repeat these strategies and these skills and use these free tools so that we can manage from day to day. But if you want something much more specific, I would suggest therapy. In therapy, everything is tailored for the individual. And so it's about your story and ways that, and strategies that would benefit you best. That's what it's about. Support, education, strategies, So if you need something specific, that would be the place to go. Find a therapist or a counselor that can support you in that. But generally speaking, these are tools, the ones I just spoke of. Your exercise and try eating right, and take a few minutes out of the day for yourself. Plan your day. Make sure you can plan that out. I know morale for work is low because many are working with no pay, but we got to get through today so we can make it to tomorrow. Just kind of advocating for yourself is going to be a benefit as we work through these times. So there are some things that we can do for ourselves as well to avoid a crisis happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, prevention is more powerful than intervention, right? And I love what you just shared, Dr. Bertha. And I think that, this episode is going to impact so many people. And if you know someone that sometimes we don't even know what people are going through because they may just keep a smile on their face and turn internally they're suffering in silence, I would say pass this episode on no matter what. You're not thinking about it. You're just acting upon it, and sharing it, because this knowledge that is being dropped by Dr. Bertha, to me, is going to help so many people. So as we continue, what role does faith, family, and community play in the supporting emotional healing?
Mm-hmm. Well, with our families and friends, our responsibility is, to be present, to communicate, to uplift and to support. That's the role of the family. And for our churches, they're supposed to be a place of refuge, not a place of silence. And so, they are one means to access resources for whatever it is that, is needed during this time. We expect for our churches to, preach peace and love, and not to, endure abuse or aggression. So, we want to lean on our leaders for our spiritual support and tap into the spiritual aspects of our lives is what we expect from our faith leaders and from our spiritual perceptions, perspectives. And then, in terms of the community, I have seen communities band together, for giveaways of needed items, not just food, but diapers, things of that nature. Coats is getting cold outside, and people don't have the funds to purchase what they need. The holidays are coming up, so you can expect for, community centers and churches to offer support in the way of gifts, in the way of meals. So, we all have to band together. There is no such thing as I don't have anything to offer someone to support them. Encouragement is only but a word.
That part.
And you can offer that.
Yeah, I agree. Wow. Encouragement is but a word. I love that, Dr. Bertha. What a great,
yes.
It is. And remember, guys, faith grounds us. Family gives us belonging. Community reminds us that we're not alone. When we combine all of that together, it brings forth healing. Healing becomes possible. And I want to leave a scripture with everybody that I love the best when it comes to, helping each other. Galatians 6, verse 2, right? It says, carry each other's burden, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. So just like Dr. Bertha just talked about, let's be that support that each other need. We can carry the burdens together. It doesn't have to be alone. Like, prime example, I'm a single mom, but I always create a village around me, and also help be a village around the other single mothers, to be able to say what you need, what can I help with, how can I, be of support, and vice versa. So let's do that, everyone. And with all that's going on, let's be that support for someone else. So this other conversation we're going to dive into is a bit touchy conversation. So, for those who are going through it right now, we're not trying to bring forth any trauma, but we definitely do want to speak on domestic violence and awareness and prevention. So, Dr. Bertha, what are some myths about domestic violence that need to be challenged?
Well, as I said earlier, some of the myths are that it doesn't happen to good families, or that victims provoke it. But we have to remember that abuse cuts across all races, incomes, and religion. and the responsibility lies on the abuser, not the abused. We want to address the myth of what domestic violence is. And we want to remember that it's not just physical. It includes emotional, verbal, sexual, spiritual, financial, discriminatory, organizational, and institutional abuse. So just being, aware of what abuse looks like is number one. We want to remember that, there are warning signs of when abuse is getting ready to occur. Anyone in an abusive relationship is probably aware of these signs. And so it would be things like tension building, which is it might look like the abuser is becoming irritable, critical, or maybe unpredictable. There is the incident of abuse, and that's where there's physical, emotional, verbal, or sexual abuse or violence that occurs. After which there's this reconciliation period where the abuser might apologize for what he's done or she's done in some cases. They may offer gifts, promise it'll never happen, may attend church with you, may even pray with you. And then there's this calm and honeymoon, phase where things seem to be going very well before the cycle, repeats itself. So in terms of domestic violence, be aware that that's happening. This is what we call these warning signs, these stages that are going to lead to abuse. The abuse is going to be, as I said, it's going to be emotional. That's humiliating you, criticizing you, minimizing you, clocking your time, tracking you on Life 360, sabotaging your employment, sabotaging their employment. All of that is emotional. We know what physical violence looks like. I just spoke of that, which includes things beyond a slap or a punch. And then there's sexual abuse that can happen in a marriage. We want to be, aware of these things, and that there's help. Now, we do not want to judge anyone who was in an abusive relationship, left, and went back, because again, that happens about 7 times generally before someone that was abused leaves the abuser for good. As I mentioned earlier, there are many reasons why a woman might stay. For the kids, affordability, they don't know who to trust or who to turn to. They begin to accept it, or they feel there's hope to change it. And so, just looking out for those things, being able to offer them support, letting folks know, women know that, again, safety is on the other side of their door. Help is but a call away. Make sure you give those, those important numbers, of course, 911, 988, and texting, the abused person's hotline, which is 88788. Keep your phone with you. Just giving, advice like this. Keep your phone with you. Keep your phone charged. Have that designated person that you can call and give a code to. And have that designated place that you can go to, for safety. All of these matters. All of these issues matter. All of these resources matter. All of this knowledge matters. You know it and you teach it to someone so that we can decrease the amount of domestic violence that's happening across the nation.
Wow. And I mean, Dr. Bertha, you said a mouthful with all of this. And I love how you mentioned, because I never thought of this, designated place and designated person, and knowing it so you can teach it to someone else. And I mean, another myth I remember, just, because this hit home for me. And we have had conversation and, just dropping information here and there about my personal life. Another myth that I've always heard from, that people would have said to me was that the victim can just leave. It's never that simple. Fear comes into play. Finance comes into play. Children come into play. And emotional manipulation all play a role in keeping someone trapped into that situation.
Absolutely.
So I
Mm-hmm.
don't want people like that's one of the biggest thing I remember. I was someone I was telling somebody I would count down. I would say I have 17 more years to go. I got 16 years to go. And one of my girlfriend looked at me. She said, "Melissa, did you just put yourself in prison?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "You keep on telling yourself how many years you have to go. Do you know this prison that you have yourself in? You can get out." And she said it so simple, right? It was just like it just rolled off her tongue.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy said than being done.
That's right. That's right. And two, I don't know if saying to someone you can easily get out is a form of validation at all. It's not
Mm-hmm.
listening to the person and believing that they're really being hurt in some way. It's
Mm-hmm.
not asking
Mm-hmm.
the person what keeps you there. You're counting down, but
Mm.
what keeps you there? And
Mm.
processing that opposed to saying you can leave at any time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is a matter of
Mm-hmm.
someone never being in your shoes.
Mm-hmm. 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 Whew. As we're wrapping up, but this conversation, I truly believe, Dr. Bertha, especially with your pause. I mean, sorry, your P4. I think this is a great conversation, even to embody P4 in the pause, the process, the planning, and the proceed to proceed. Right. I
Mm-hmm.
believe all this embodies what you do with Birth to Arise, and I truly believe that Birth to Arise is on the rise to really bring this information where it becomes reality to people, because we are secretly we're in the public eye, many of us, or we're doing so much for others, but we are neglected in our own selves. We're neglected
Mm-hmm.
because we don't want to face the fact, right? So I do believe that Birth or Rise exists for people like myself. It exists for people like, others that's out here that's just need another eye, another voice, another direction to just everything that we are going through. So as we kind of wrap everything up, I want to kind of like ask this two other questions to you. How can friends and families safely, because you just said something about what that young lady said, right? How can we safely support someone they suspect is being abused?
Well, first, you want to make sure when you're talking with them, they're in a space where they can talk. You want to make sure that you're listening to them to have a better understanding of what they're experiencing right then. We are hopeful that, after listening to them, you can offer support, whatever type of support it is that they need. If they're not willing to leave the house for whatever reason, they're not willing to leave the house, encourage them to have their phones on them. Keep their phones charged. That kind of thing. Call me, and this is a signal that you need help. There are things that people can do to support someone that's in a domestic violence situation and is not ready to leave. So be mindful of that as a friend, as a sister, as a mother. Be mindful of that. It's not about how you feel about their situation. This is one of those times where you're going to put your feelings to the side so that you can address theirs. Yeah.
I agree. And one thing I remember I had to tell my friend no to, because one of the things that we also, as friends and family member, right, we want to become our protector. So I would say never confront their abuser, because I remember she's like, I'm going to say this. No, because it can put the victim in itself, Miss Bertha, in a greater danger.
Yes.
Yeah, right? So we got to be their quiet strength, y'all, until they are ready to step out. You can't be like, I'm going to protect you by confronting that abuser, because you can make the situation worse.
Absolutely, and that is not something that an abused woman would ask you to do.
Come on. Come
put
on.
her in
We
more
may feel
danger.
it. We may feel like we want to be there, but you're right. She would never want that, you know? So last question I'm going to ask of you, Dr. Bertha, as we close this segment out, how can faith communities respond with compassion instead of judgment?
Faith communities? Well, as I said earlier, be available. We don't turn anyone away who wants to walk in the doors of the church. Be available. And, be available with what the community needs. That means you have to be out in the community to know what the needs of the communities are. And so right now, we know food, and there are churches that are that I'm aware of that are giving gift certificates to folks that have been furloughed, are offering meals to folks that have been furloughed, are giving clothing and other needed items. So, churches are stepping up to the call to action. And we have to be aware of that. But, as we talk to people through our churches, they need to be giving resources, additional community resources. And we don't want to forget the military. I would suggest that the military tap into their military aid services for support, because our military members, many of them, are working with no pay. So this is one hub for us, our faith-based community. That's one hub for us to tap into. Then there's our family that we can tap into, So use the resources that are available for you beyond your church.
Yeah. Wow. And as we wrap up, is there any other things you want to kind of leave us with before we leave today?
Just that I recognize that times are difficult, more difficult than they've ever been, and it feels like we don't have any control over it, because much of it we don't. But we do have control over what happens to us internally. And so be mindful, of what you're thinking and how you're feeling and how you're responding. Try to pause and calm yourself so that you can make it through this, make it through to the other side. We're all going through it together. Be patient with each other, and keep it all in prayer. Keep it all in prayer, one step at a time. Pause when you need to pause. Cry when you need to cry. Write it down if you need to write it down, so you can make it to the next step that tomorrow brings. Be encouraged. We're all going to rise together and thrive together.
Yes. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Bertha White. We truly appreciate you, ma'am. Today's conversation, we were talking about the government shutdown and the emotional toll mental health, faith, and domestic violence awareness brings. And as Dr. Bertha, she said it best. She wrapped it up really, really good. And I just want to, again, even in this times of uncertainty, y'all, whether it's financial strain, whether it's mental health challenges, or even emotional pain, faith and community can be your anchor. Let's, be intentional about creating space of hope, healing, and truth, not only for yourself, but those who are around you. Dr. Bertha kind of mentioned a couple of different numbers. If you or someone is in crisis, please reach out for help. She also gave an idea of the sign that you can use, the hand signal. The call number you need to make sure you have on speed dial is 988 for the mental health support, or the 800-799-SAFE, and SAFE is 7233 for the National Domestic Violence Hotline. And to all my listeners, stay empowered, stay faithful, and remember, you are the light this world needs, and let no one tell you any different. And as we close out, Dr. Bertha, can you leave us with any of your contact details so everyone can follow you, but also connect back with you?
Absolutely. You can follow me on Facebook, and that's at Bertha Arise, BerthaArise, YouTube, which is at Bertha Arise 111. You can email me at info@berthaarise.com, and my contact number is 240-346-0934. Just text me. And you can also email me at agentofchange@verizon.net. So, if anyone wants to get in touch, if anyone needs any words, any encouragement, instruction, or coaching, feel free to reach out.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well said, Dr. Bertha. And I know for a fact, one of the things that I love about you is that you are a clinical therapist there in the tri-state area, which is Virginia and Maryland. Do you cover the D.C. area as well, ma'am, with your license?
I do.
Awesome.
My license is in D.C. and Virginia, but because of my license, I can offer mental health education, training, and coaching across the nation and abroad. So, my base in Maryland and Virginia, which is where my practice is located, is where I engage in therapy behind the closed doors. But with Bertha Arise, I can take, my knowledge and the skills that I have outside of the walls of typical therapy, which is what Bertha Arise does. So yes, I'm in private practice in those 2 states, and outside of private practice everywhere else.
Wonderful. Well said. Thank you again, Dr. Bertha White, H.C. But she also have her license as MSW, LCSW-C. You can tune in every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at womenemergeradio.com. You can follow me on Facebook at Melissa S. Lambert. That's MELLISA S. Lambert on Facebook and Instagram. And you can also go to coachmelissa.com if you would like a financial consultation and to kind of get yourself in order financially. Again, Coach Melissa, that's MELLISA.com. We thank you again, Dr. Bertha White, for being able to share your knowledge, your expertise, and also give us hope in this season where things are challenging, but we know for sure we have each other. So until next time, everyone, please take care, take charge, and continue to be great. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Women Emerge with Melissa Lambert, where Melissa speaks with leaders, experts, and motivators who share their journeys and their stories through personal and professional growth, knowledgeable tips, and lessons learned that will empower you to grow. Follow Melissa and Women Emerge Network on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at MELLISASLAMBERT and at Women Emerge Network. And visit www.womenemergenetwork.com. Remember, when you know better, you can do better, especially when God is for you.